A Hells Angels biker was walking down a sun-baked street, heading to a small repair shop to buy a used Harley. The town looked half asleep under the heat until he heard something, a muffled cry coming from inside the shop. Curious, he pushed the door open. The place was empty, tools scattered, dust hanging in the air. Then he saw her, a waitress, bruised and terrified, tied to a chair in the corner, whispering, "Please, don't let him come back." Cole Maddox froze. "Who did this to you?" he asked. She looked up, eyes full of fear. "The sheriff. He'll kill us both if he finds out." Before he could answer, the sound of boots and a door slamming echoed behind him. That's when he realized he'd just walked straight into the town's darkest secret. Subscribe to Heart Tales. Let's check in. 1 for first-time viewer, 2 if you've seen a few, 3 if you never miss. The sun was merciless that afternoon, burning the highway into a silver mirage as Cole Maddox walked the last half-mile into town. Dust clung to his boots, his jeans stiff from travel, the road shimmering like it was trying to shake him off. He had been on foot for 2 days since his Harley finally gave up outside Winslow, engine dead, clutch shot, and wallet thin. He'd heard about a place called Hank's Custom Bikes on the edge of a forgotten town named Redemption, population barely 800 and falling. The ad he'd seen at a roadside diner said, 98% Sportster, $2,000 cash, no questions asked. It was the no questions that told him everything he needed to know about the kind of men he was walking toward. Cole's breath came slow and steady as he turned off the cracked asphalt onto a dirt lane. The building sat alone at the end of it, sheet metal walls warped by heat, faded blue paint, and a handmade sign that claimed best deals in 3 counties. The parking lot was empty, except for a rusted pickup with 1 flat tire. He wiped his hands on his jeans, rolled his shoulders, and stepped inside. A rusty bell over the door rang a lazy warning. The place smelled of motor oil, sweat, and dust that hadn't been disturbed in months. Sunlight leaked through the blinds in crooked bands, catching the motes that floated like ghosts. 3 motorcycles sat under the harsh light, too clean for a shop that saw no customers, their chrome shining like they were on display for no one. Cole's boots creaked against the concrete as he took a slow look around. "Help you?" The voice came from behind a cluttered counter. The man who stepped out had a gut like a sandbag, tattoos faded to green shadows, and a tank top that had lost its color somewhere back in the last decade. His smile was practiced but never reached his eyes. "Called about the Sportster," Cole said, keeping his voice even. The man nodded, wiping grease off his hands with a rag that only made them dirtier. Right. Hank Morrison." He extended a hand. Cole took it briefly. Firm, quick, and detached. Years in the service had taught him how to read a grip. Hank's was damp and uncertain. "Bike's out back," Hank said. "You wait here, I'll grab the keys." Cole nodded, eyes following the man as he disappeared through a metal door behind the counter. The sound of boots faded, swallowed by the building. Silence filled the room again, too quiet. Cole looked around. 3 bikes, 1 register, no customers, no radio, no sound from outside. For a Saturday, the town felt like it had given up breathing. Then he heard it, soft, rhythmic, tap, 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 a pause. Then tap, tap, he froze. It wasn't random, it had cadence. A beat, a message, Morse code, H-E-L-P. His muscles tensed before his mind caught up. The sound came from the back wall, near the corridor Hank had vanished into. He glanced at the front door. The heat shimmered beyond the glass. He could walk away, pretend he'd heard nothing. But the habit of paying attention, the one that had kept him alive in darker places, wouldn't let him. He moved toward the hallway, each step quiet, measured. The smell changed as he went. Less oil, more something metallic, sharp, wrong. The tapping stopped. He listened, heartbeat loud in his ears. Then a whisper of movement, the faint drag of metal on concrete. The door at the end of the corridor stood slightly ajar. Cole pushed it open. The room inside was dim, lit only by a skylight that let in a single white shaft of sun. In that light sat a woman chained to a support beam. Her wrists were cuffed, her ankles tied with heavy zip ties. Her hair clung to her face, streaked with blood and dust, and one of her eyes was swollen shut. She was young, maybe 30, but her expression was older than pain. She looked at him without fear, only calculation. "How many are here?" she whispered. "Just the owner," Cole said quietly. "You're hurt." "I've been worse," she murmured. "My name's Riley Kwan." "I was FBI." She swallowed, voice cracking on the edge of exhaustion. "I witnessed Sheriff Ray Dalton execute my partner 3 nights ago. He runs everything in this town, drugs, payoffs, everything. Hank's his cousin. They were going to kill me once Dalton knew how much I saw." Cole crouched beside her, examining the cuffs, standard police issue, double-locked. "How long have you been here?" "3 days," she said. "There's evidence. A ledger behind the 3rd bike in the showroom, false bottom in a locker, and a burnt USB drive. It has partial footage, names, dates, payments." Her eyes darted to the door. "You need to—" The hinges screamed. "Where the hell you think you're going?" Hank filled the doorway, holding a pistol so steady it shook. His face had gone from friendly to empty. "Should have stayed up front." Cole stood slowly, positioning himself between Hank and the woman. "You gonna shoot an unarmed customer, Hank?" "You should have minded your business," Hank said. His hand drifted toward his belt, steadying the weapon. Cole's voice dropped, low and calm. "You don't want to do that." Hank's finger twitched on the trigger. For a split second, the room shrank to breath and instinct. Cole moved. Empty bar and a chair went flying, clattering against Hank's arm as the gun went off. The shot tore into the wall, plaster dust raining down. Cole closed the distance in 2 steps, wrenching the pistol free and slamming his shoulder into Hank's chest. They hit the floor hard, the gun spinning across concrete. Cole pinned the man, knuckles connecting with jaw, until the fight went out of him. Hank lay gasping, eyes wide with disbelief. "The key," Cole said. Hank spat blood and words together. "You're dead, both of you. The sheriff will skin you alive." "Whoop aren't." "The key," Cole repeated. Hank fumbled in his pocket and threw a small silver key toward the floor. It skidded, landing near Riley's boots. Cole grabbed it, freed her cuffs, and helped her to her feet. "He's going to warn Dalton," she said. "Then we move fast." They stepped over Hank, who lay clutching his ribs, mumbling curses. As Cole led Riley down the hallway, the man's voice followed them like a bad echo. "There's nowhere to run. He owns the roads, the phones, everything." Outside, the sun hit them like a wall. The heat smelled of rubber and gasoline. Cole scanned the street, empty but for a single stray dog, asleep in the shade of a gas pump. The town seemed dead, yet he could feel eyes behind curtains, the weight of quiet watching. Riley stumbled but caught herself on his arm. "Can you get us out?" "I don't have a bike yet," he said, "but I know how to take one." She gave a small pained smile. "That's a start." They moved toward the back of the building, where 6 old frames leaned against a fence. Cole's mind was already calculating routes, shadows, and odds. Somewhere behind them, Hank's pickup roared to life, gravel spraying as he sped off toward town. Riley clutched the side of the doorway, catching her breath. "He's warning Dalton right now. We've got 20 minutes before this whole place becomes a hunting ground." Cole picked the cleanest bike of the lot, a weathered Harley with flat tires and a good heart of steel beneath the rust. "Then we fix what we can and ride until the heat gives up." She managed to stand beside him, pale but fierce. "Can you fix it that fast?" He looked at her, one corner of his mouth lifting. "Fast enough if you hand me that wrench." The wrench turned with a metallic groan as Cole tightened the final bolt. Sweat dripped from his jawline, darkening the dust at his boots. The Harley was half dead, but she had life left in her. He could hear it in the echo of the pistons when he spun the crank by hand. He'd already swapped out the spark plug, drained the gummy fuel, and begged the carburetor back to cooperation with a screwdriver and luck. Riley leaned against the fence, one hand pressed to her ribs, watching him work with eyes that fought to stay open. 5 minutes, Cole muttered. "Give or take." She tried to smile, but the movement hurt. "You always this calm when people are hunting you?" He looked up at her, his blue eyes steady. "Habit." He yanked the choke, twisted the throttle twice and kicked the starter. The Harley coughed once, twice, then growled awake, rough, uneven, but alive. Riley blinked against the sun, and for a second she almost forgot the pain. "That sound," she whispered, "I missed it." Cole swung a leg over the bike, offered his hand. "Let's keep it running." She climbed on behind him, arms slipping around his waist. He could feel the tremor in her hands. Fear or adrenaline, maybe both. He shifted into gear, gravel spitting from under the tires as the Harley surged forward. They shot down the back alley, engine echoing off the walls. The town unfolded ahead like a stage set too bright to be real. Wooden storefronts, a silent diner, a bar with its door propped open by an old beer case. Life here looked normal until you looked close. Curtains twitched. A man leaned against a lamppost and spoke into a radio the size of a fist. "They've already got eyes on us," Cole said under his breath. "Dalton's people," Riley murmured. "He's got them everywhere. Then we give them a chase worth remembering." He opened the throttle. The Harley screamed down Main Street, wind tearing at their clothes. Ahead, the road split, left toward the highway, right toward a stretch of red dirt trail that wound into the hills. Cole took the right. Dust exploded behind them, the bike leaping as they hit uneven ground. Behind, an engine roared in answer. A black SUV burst out of a side street, tires spitting gravel. Another followed, lights flashing though no one had called for help. "Two trucks," Riley said. "Probably deputies, probably dead men if they keep pushing." Cole gunned the throttle, the Harley fishtailing before biting into the dirt. The road narrowed, framed by dry brush and saguaros standing like soldiers. The first SUV skidded, trying to close the gap. Cole leaned into a curve so hard the foot pegs sparked against stone. The wind carried the stench of hot metal and sand. A bullet cracked the air. Riley ducked, clutching his jacket. "They're shooting at us. Then they're getting nervous." Another shot hit the dirt beside the front wheel. Cole jerked the bike sideways, weaving between rock outcrops. A canyon mouth opened ahead, a narrow cut between cliffs that twisted south. He aimed for it. The bike bounced over washboard ruts, frame rattling like bones. The SUV followed, engine screaming. Cole dropped a gear and let the Harley skid into the canyon where the walls closed in, shadows cooling the heat. The echo of the engine bounced around them like thunder. He leaned into a blind turn just as another bullet rang out, hitting stone and showering sparks. "Hold on," he warned. The canyon ended in a dry riverbed. Cole didn't slow. The Harley flew off the edge, landed hard on sand, suspension groaning but holding. Behind them, the first SUV hesitated, and in that second hesitation, it clipped a boulder and flipped, rolling end over end until it slammed into the canyon wall in a bloom of dust. Riley looked back, eyes wide. "You killed them." "No," Cole said. "They did that themselves." The second SUV braked hard, staying at the top of the ridge. Cole didn't wait to see if it would follow. He sped along the riverbed until the walls opened into a flat stretch of desert scrub. When they finally stopped, the silence came roaring back. Only the ticking of cooling metal and the rasp of their breathing filled the air. Cole cut the engine and listened. No sirens, no engines, just the buzz of distant cicadas. He swung off the bike and checked the saddlebags. The ledger was still there, edges curling in the heat. Riley slid off slowly, clutching her side. She was pale, sweat running down her neck. "We can't keep running," she said. "He'll lock down the county. We need help." Cole crouched beside the bike, scanning the horizon. "You said there was a USB drive. What's on it?" "Partial footage of Dalton executing Tony Reeves," she said softly. "And maybe more, but it's corrupted. I need someone who can recover it." "Who?" "Carson Reed," she said after a pause. "Former FBI. He got forced out when he tried to expose the same network Dalton works for. He lives 2 counties west." Cole nodded, thinking. If we stay on open roads, they'll spot us in an hour. We go off-road, we'll burn the engine, then we rest, she said. You look like you haven't stopped in days. He smirked faintly. Neither of you. They found shade under a half-collapsed billboard that once advertised a brand of beer no one could afford anymore. Cole tore open a pack of beef jerky from his pocket, handed her a strip. She took it, chewing slowly, her jaw tight with pain. For a few minutes the world was only heat and wind. A hawk circled overhead. The ledger sat between them like something radioactive. You could have left me there, she said finally. Epibars, could have, he replied. But you didn't. He looked at her, the corners of his eyes crinkling against the sun. Maybe I was tired of watching people stay quiet. She studied him for a moment. You ever been afraid? All the time, he said. Just got good at moving anyway. The silence that followed was heavier than the heat. Cole reached into his bag, pulled out a folded road map from before the world went digital. He traced a line west with his finger. There's an old supply route through Copper Ridge. It'll take us toward Reed's cabin without touching the main road. Riley nodded. You sure that bike can handle it? P.P. Barsent, he glanced at the Harley, paint chipped, engine ticking as it cooled. She's got heart, that's enough. A faint sound drifted on the wind then. Distant engines, more than one, coming fast. Riley's head snapped up. They found us. Paul stood, scanning the horizon. 3 dots of dust were growing larger to the east. He swung onto the Harley, started it with a roar. Back on, Agent. She climbed behind him without a word, every motion deliberate despite the pain. The Harley tore back into motion, kicking up a trail of dust that glittered like smoke in the noon light. The engines behind grew louder, closing fast. Cole leaned low over the handlebars, the desert blurring into streaks of gold and grey. As they crested a rise, the road forked. To the left, flat open desert, death if they were seen from the air. To the right, a narrow canyon that twisted through old mining hills. He turned right, the front wheel sliding across gravel. The bike lurched but recovered, skimming dangerously close to the edge of a dry ravine. Riley clung tighter. You know where this goes? No, he said, but it's not back there. Bullets sparked against stone again, a reminder that choice was a luxury they'd long lost. Cole pushed the Harley harder, engines screaming in defiance. The canyon walls closed in like the jaws of a trap, sunlight cutting thin lines across their faces. For an instant it felt like flying, the wind, the noise, the blur of motion, and then they burst out into open land again, the road flattening into a pale stretch of dirt that led toward the distant shimmer of a highway. The sound of pursuit began to fade, swallowed by the heat. Riley's grip loosened slightly. You think we lost them? Not yet, he said, but we're closer to Reed. If he's half the man you think he is, we might have a chance. She rested her head against his back, too tired to answer. Ahead the horizon split into endless light. Cole fixed his eyes on it, jaw set, the desert wind burning his face raw. Somewhere behind them, power and corruption still ruled. But for the first time since he walked into that cursed showroom, he felt the old rhythm again. The one that said, keep moving, keep fighting, keep breathing. And this time, he wasn't running from something. He was running toward it. The desert burned white under the early afternoon sun. Cole eased the Harley off the dirt trail and into a pocket of shadow cast by an eroded cliff. The engine coughed once, then settled into silence, leaving only the hum of cicadas and the whisper of hot winds scraping across stone. Riley slid off the seat slowly, one hand still gripping the saddle as her knees threatened to buckle. She had gone pale again, but her eyes stayed sharp. Brotherhood stripped off his denim jacket and laid it on the sand for her to sit. She sank onto it with a quiet sigh. He crouched nearby, scanning the horizon. Nothing but heat and distance. Good. We'll wait here, he said. They'll spread out and burn fuel trying to find us. Desert always wins against impatience. Riley leaned her head back against the rock wall, eyes half closed. You sound like someone who's done this before. I've been hunted before, he said simply. She smiled faintly. Army? Delta. he replied, pulling a small canteen from his pack. Before everything got complicated. He handed it to her. She took a drink, then passed it back. What made you stop? Too many people giving orders who'd never heard a bullet, he said. You? Riley's lips pressed together, hesitation flickering across her face. I joined the bureau to make things better. I thought if you worked hard enough, told the truth loud enough, it could matter. Turns out, the truth has to ask permission too. Cole sat beside her, elbows on his knees, letting the heat settle over them. You said you had a partner, he said. She nodded slowly. Tony Reeves. He was good. Too good. He started digging into shipments coming through the sheriff's dock. Dalton runs his own border operation. Imports drugs, weapons, sometimes people. The shipments come in on unmarked trucks, get repackaged through legitimate vendors. The money goes straight into campaign funds and offshore accounts. Tony found proof. We were supposed to deliver it to Phoenix. Her voice trembled, but she kept going. The night we were leaving, Dalton called Tony to the docks, said he had something new, something we needed to see. I followed with a wire. It was a setup. Dalton shot him before he even turned around. I screamed and they took me. Cole looked down at the sand between his boots, jaw tightening. You saw it all, every frame. She tapped the pocket of her torn jeans. That's what's left on the drive. Half burned, but it's there. Dalton's face, the sound of the gun, everything. Carson Reed is the only one I trust to fix it. Cole nodded. We'll get to him. Riley studied him for a moment. Why are you helping me, really? He thought about it for a while before answering. Because I've seen towns like this before, small, quiet, owned by one man with a badge and a taste for fear. You can ride through or you can burn it down. I've ridden through enough. A gust of wind kicked up dust, rattling through the canyon. Cole stood, scanning the distant ridgeline again. No movement, no dust trails, only the cruel glare of day. He looked back at her. We need to move when the sun drops a bit. Too open right now. Riley nodded but didn't move. She was staring at the Harley, eyes distant. You ever think about leaving it all behind? Just disappearing? Every day, he said. But trouble has a way of finding people like me. She smiled weakly. Maybe you look like someone who'd help. Or maybe I just look like someone who's too stubborn to walk away. They sat in silence for a few minutes. The desert had its own kind of time. Slow, patient, endless. Cole patched a rip in the fuel line with duct tape from his kit. Riley watched him, studying the way his hands moved, efficient, unhurried, a soldier's rhythm. When the wind shifted, carrying the faint smell of gasoline, he froze. He sniffed the air again, fuel exhaust, faint but definite, coming from the north. They're moving in grid formation, he said. Search pattern. We need to go. Riley pushed herself up, wincing. Can you tell how many? 3 vehicles, maybe 4. They're burning daylight fast. We'll cut through Copper Ridge. Copper Ridge? She asked. Old mining road. Maps say it's closed. That's what makes it perfect. They climbed back onto the bike. Cole started the engine, the sound swallowed quickly by the vastness around them. They rode west, hugging the edge of the cliffs until the terrain turned rougher. Patches of cracked earth, old mining equipment half buried in sand. The sun lowered enough to turn the world gold. Every shadow stretched thin. The air cooled just enough to breathe again. Cole spotted the remains of a shack ahead, its roof caved in and one wall still standing. He pulled the bike behind it and killed the engine. Riley climbed off, stretching her sore limbs. This place looks older than sin. Good, Cole said. No one sins this far out anymore. Inside, the shack smelled of rust and dry wood. A broken cot leaned against the wall. Cole found an old oil drum and knocked it over. A small cloud of dust rose. He scanned the floor and found a half-rotted box containing a few flare rounds, a wrench, and a dirty blanket. Not much, he said. It's shelter, Riley replied. That's more than we had this morning. They sat against the wall, sharing the last of the water. The desert outside had gone quiet again, as if waiting. Riley broke the silence first. Dalton won't stop. Even if we make it to Carson, he'll send more. Then we keep moving, Cole said, until he can't afford to chase. She leaned her head back, exhaustion pulling at her words. You really think one man can fight a whole town? Cole looked at the fading horizon, the colors bleeding into fire and violet. One man's enough if he's fighting for the right thing. Her eyes met his, uncertain, curious. You sound like someone who lost faith and found it again. He shrugged. Maybe I just found a reason to care. The star of the ridge in slow layers. The stars blinked awake, scattered across a sky so wide it almost hurt to look at. Cole pulled the blanket over her shoulders and stayed awake, listening to the quiet. Somewhere in the distance a coyote called, its cry rolling across the empty miles. He studied Riley's face as she drifted into sleep, bruised, worn, but alive. The drive was safe in his jacket pocket. The ledger sat beside him, open to the page with Dalton's name, the neat handwriting mocking him in the pale light of the moon. He closed it and whispered to himself, "We'll bring it back on your terms, Tony." Then he looked west, toward where Carson Reed might be waiting, promised silently that by the time the next sun rose, redemption's walls would start to crack. The morning sun came pale and sharp, cutting through a sky washed clean by desert wind. Cole and Riley had ridden through the night, stopping only long enough to refill the Harley from a rusted can they'd scavenged at the shack. The road west wound through badlands that looked carved by giants, canyons bleeding into plateaus, shadows long enough to hide 1,000 sins. By noon, a weathered sign rose from the sand, Glenora County line. Beyond it, the world shifted from dust to sparse green, Joshua trees, scrub, and the faint smell of rain that never came. Riley clung to Cole's back, her strength returning bit by bit. She pointed toward a cluster of structures at the edge of the horizon. "That's him," she said. "Carson Reed, former bureau. He's been off the grid for 6 years." The cabin appeared like an afterthought in the desert, tucked against a bluff, half hidden by dry mesquite. Cole killed the engine 50 yards out. "Let me go first," he said. "People who live this far out don't like surprises." He walked up the narrow path, hands visible, voice calm. "Carson Reed?" A man stepped out from behind a truck with a shotgun leveled steady. Late 50s, lean muscle under a grey flannel shirt, eyes cold but not unkind. His beard was salt and steel. "Depends who's asking." "Name's Cole Maddox. Brought someone who says you're the only man she trusts." Riley appeared behind him, pale in the sunlight. Reed's expression shifted, suspicion cracking into recognition. "Kwan? Jesus, they said you were dead." "Almost was," she said. He lowered the gun. "You'd better come inside before someone decides to make that rumor true." Inside the cabin, everything smelled of old coffee and soda. The walls were lined with shelves of radio parts, hard drives, and more dust than space. Reed poured water from a jug and handed it to Riley. "You look like hell." "Feels worse," she said. "We've got a problem, Carson. Dalton's worse than we thought." She pulled the damaged USB from her pocket and laid it on the table like an offering. "I need it recovered." Reed picked it up between 2 fingers, studying the scorch marks. "You bring me ghosts, Riley. This kind of damage usually kills the data." "Can you try?" He sighed, sat down at an old laptop, and started plugging in adapters. "I'll try. But if Dalton's still running this county, he's got ears in every signal tower between here and Phoenix." He glanced at Cole. "You military?" "Used to be," Cole said. Reed nodded once, as if that explained everything. "Then you know what we're up against. Man like Dalton doesn't just kill to cover his tracks. He kills to remind people they can't win." Minutes passed in silence except for the whir of the laptop. Lines of corrupted code flickered across the screen, red and white static mixed with glimpses of a video frame, an industrial dock, faint shapes of men under sodium lights. Riley leaned forward, gripping the table. "That's it," she whispered. "That's the night." Reed froze the image, enhanced it grain by grain. Dalton's face appeared, blurred but unmistakable. Gun raised, muzzle flash. Tony Reeves falling. Reed exhaled through his teeth. "That's murder on record." Riley's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "We have him Not yet, Reed said. A video gets you headlines, not justice. You'll need evidence that ties him to money, logistics, motive, a system. He looked to Cole. You found anything else? Cole opened the saddlebag and laid the ledger on the table. Cash transfers, weekly, names in initials, MR, JH, RD. Reed flipped through the pages, scanning. MR, Mayor Russell. JH, Judge Hendricks. RD, your man Dalton. This isn't a local racket. This is a chain. Each name feeds the next. So how do we break it? Cole asked. Reed's smile was humorless. You don't. You expose it. You make it so public that killing you won't matter anymore. He pointed at a dusty phone on the shelf. There's a prosecutor in Flagstaff who still plays clean, Amanda Cross. She won't touch this unless she sees proof, but if she does, she'll bring in the feds. Riley's shoulders straightened. Then we take it to her. Reed shook his head. Not yet. You step into that city. You light every alarm Dalton's wired. He'll have bounty hunters, cops and politicians at your throat by sunset. Cole leaned on the counter. So what do we do until then? Reed inserted another command. The video stabilized, the gunshot looped, clearer now. Dalton's voice echoed faintly. You should have stayed out of it. Reed hit pause, turned the screen toward them. You build a war plan, he said, and you make sure the next move isn't his. Outside, the wind rose again, carrying dust through the cracks in the windows. Riley looked at the screen, at the frozen image of her partner dying, and then at Cole. If we do this, we don't get to stop, she said. Cole's reply came quiet but certain. Then we don't stop. Reed powered down the laptop, locked the USB in a small fireproof case and handed it to Riley. Keep it close. The ledger too. Tomorrow morning we ride for Flagstaff. Cole looked out the window toward the endless stretch of sunburned land, the kind that hid snakes under every rock. Somewhere out there, Dalton's men were still searching, still hunting. He felt the weight of the road settling in his chest again, not as burden but as promise. When he turned back, Reed was checking his old revolver, spinning the cylinder with the sound of memory. Been a while since I fought for something that mattered, he said. Cole nodded once. Guess we're all coming out of retirement. Reed gave a crooked smile. Welcome to the resistance, son. Outside, the light sharpened to white, the heat shimmering over the horizon. Inside that small cabin, 3 people who shouldn't have met sat surrounded by evidence that could shatter a kingdom built on fear. The air felt charged, alive. And for the first time since redemption, Riley Kwan let herself believe they might actually win. By late morning, the desert shimmered like liquid glass. Cole tightened the straps on his vest and checked the chamber of his pistol. Riley adjusted her borrowed sunglasses, her bruises fading but her resolve sharper than ever. Carson Reed stood beside the truck they'd borrowed, scanning the horizon. Dalton keeps his dirty money and backups at the docks, he said. Every file he's ever used to blackmail his allies is stored there. If we pull those drives, we pull the whole tree down. Paddock was feted the small industrial complex through binoculars. The dock was fenced by corrugated metal, 2 watchtowers and a single gate guarded by men in county uniforms. Middle of the day, he said. They won't expect anyone stupid enough to come now. Penny Varson Reed grinned. Then it's our lucky hour. They'd traded the Harley for an old maintenance van, its logo half-peeled and faded. Cole drove while Riley sat up front, a clipboard in her lap to look official. Reed hid in the back among tool crates and coiled cables. The heat pressed through the windshield like a living thing. Ahead, the guard stepped out, waving lazily. Cole slowed. Handing over a forged work order Riley had filled out in pencil and oil smudges. Routine inspection, she said flatly. City compliance wants dock wiring checked. The guard squinted at her, then at Cole's impassive face. Sweat rolled down his neck. Finally, he waved them through. Make it quick. Boss don't like surprises. They rolled in. The gate clanged shut behind them. Inside, the place looked asleep under the sun. Warehouses crouched low, trucks parked in neat rows, the river glittering beyond like polished steel. Cole, parked behind a storage shed, killed the engine. Reed climbed out quietly, pulling a small toolkit from a crate. Server room's in the west office, he said. Riley, you keep watch. Cole, you're with me. They moved fast, cutting between shadows. Inside the office, the air was cold from the hum of overworked fans. Reed knelt at a digital lock, hands moving like a pianist's. Dalton upgraded since I left, he muttered. He thinks technology makes him immortal. Cole checked the hallway, pulse steady, eyes calculating. Footsteps passed outside, 2 workers talking about lunch. He waited until their voices faded. Reed exhaled and pushed the door open. Rows of drives blinked quietly, thousands of tiny lights pulsing like heartbeats. Grab everything labeled internal, Reed whispered. Cole started pulling drives, sliding them into a satchel. Each one was tagged with initials. MRJHRD S5. Riley's voice came over the radio earpiece, calm but tight. Truck just pulled in. County decals. Looks like deputies. Reed's head snapped up. We're out of time. Cole pocketed one last drive and zipped the bag. As they stepped into the hallway, a figure turned the corner, a security guard with a badge and a gun halfway drawn. Cole didn't hesitate. He slammed the man against the wall, silencing him with one clean strike. He'll wake up angry, Cole said. They slipped outside, the sun blinding after the cool dark. Riley waited by the van, engine already running. 2 deputies stood near the gate, cigarettes glowing, unaware. Cole climbed in and threw the bag into the back. Reed followed, slamming the doors just as Riley hit the gas. The van lurched forward, tires spinning on gravel. One of the deputies shouted, waving for them to stop. Cole leaned out the window, fired a warning shot over their heads. The men dove for cover as the van burst through the half-open gate, metal screeching. Subtle, Reed said dryly. Not my best trait, Cole replied. They sped down the access road, the dock shrinking behind them in a haze of dust. Riley kept the wheels steady despite the rough terrain. We got what we came for? Reed held up one of the drives, sunlight flashing off its surface. Enough to bury him. Cole looked at Riley, her jaw set, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. Then let's make sure it sees daylight. For the first time since redemption, she smiled. Not out of relief, but because the fight finally felt possible. The van disappeared into the glare of the afternoon. 3 fugitives carrying the truth in a bag that rattled like judgment, and behind them, the empire of Sheriff Ray Dalton began to crack. They reached Flagstaff by late afternoon, the air cooler, the light thinning into gold that made every shadow longer. Cole parked the van behind a car wash where the noise of the dryers would drown any unwanted ears. Reed stepped out first, stretching stiff shoulders, and Riley followed, clutching the satchel that held their proof like it was a heartbeat she couldn't afford to lose. You sure about this, prosecutor? Cole asked. Reed nodded. Amanda Cross. She doesn't scare easy. She used to work corruption cases until Dalton's friends in Phoenix tried to bury her career. If anyone still believes in due process around here, it's her. They waited until traffic noise swallowed the city's hum, then drove downtown to a brick building that had once been a bank. Amanda's office occupied the top floor. No sign, just a brass nameplate dulled by fingerprints. Cole stayed in the van, watching the street, while Reed and Riley went inside. The office was small, the walls lined with law books and worn case files. Amanda Cross stood behind her desk, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back, expression sharp enough to cut through doubt. Carson Reed, she said as he entered. Either the desert finally ate you or you brought me something I shouldn't touch. Both, Reed said. Meet Riley Kwan, bureau agent. She saw Dalton murder another agent. We've got footage. Amanda's eyes flicked to Riley, recognition and worry colliding. You're the one they said disappeared. I was supposed to, Riley replied. We need your help before Dalton finds us. Reed set the drives and the ledger on her desk. Everything's here. Names, payments, dates. He's bought the county whole. Amanda stared at the pile, her lawyer's instinct warring with fear. If this is real, I'll need warrants, secure transfers, media backup. It'd be Barson. You'll need courage, Reed interrupted gently. He's already got half your department. Amanda exhaled, then powered on her laptop. I'll verify it myself. You'll have to give me time. P. "We don't have much," Riley said. "He's already hunting us." Downstairs, Cole watched the sidewalk through the windshield. People came and went. Office clerks, delivery men, a couple arguing near a bus stop. Nothing strange, yet something in his gut tightened. Too quiet, too deliberate. Then he saw it, a dark sedan idling at the corner, its engine never off, 2 men inside pretending to read a newspaper. He tapped the horn once, the signal. Upstairs, Reed looked toward the window. "We've been made." Amanda closed the laptop and slid the drives into her briefcase. "Follow me," she said. "There's a secure exit through the records room." They moved fast. Cole met them in the alley, his eyes cold and ready. Two Tails corner sedan, they're calling it in. Amanda handed Riley the briefcase. "If I get caught, this still has to go public. There's a journalist, Sarah Vance, independent, stubborn, not for sale. Find her." Riley nodded. "Where?" "Channel 7, downtown. She'll believe you when she sees that video." Sirens began to build in the distance, thin and sharp. Cole drove, cutting through side streets, weaving between traffic lights until they reached the television station. Sarah Vance met them in the parking lot, phone already buzzing with tips about a rogue prosecutor and fugitives. She was in her 40s, steady eyes behind camera-ready calm. "You've just started a war," she said, taking the briefcase. "You sure you want me to open this?" "Open it," Riley said. Minutes later, the footage hit the newsroom screens, the grainy dock, the gun flash, Dalton's face. Sarah didn't hesitate. "We'll broadcast it live. No time to wait for clearance. The country needs to see." By the time they left the station, the first headlines were already scrolling across televisions in storefronts. "Sheriff tied to murder and corruption. FBI agent survives attempted execution." Dalton's counterattack came within hours. He called an emergency press conference, his face a mask of authority beneath bright cameras. "These accusations," he said, "come from disgraced officials and criminals. My record speaks for itself." Cole watched from the motel where they'd holed up, the TV flickering across the cracked walls. Reed shut it off. "He's cornered," he said. "He'll fight me now." Outside, thunder rolled in from distant hills, a storm building over the desert. Riley turned from the window, her reflection layered over the dark. "Then tomorrow," she said quietly, "we finish it." The storm broke before dawn, sweeping across the desert like a wall of grey fire. Sheets of rain hammered the motel roof while lightning carved the sky into violent veins of white. Cole stood by the window, watching the water blur the lights of passing cars on the highway. Beside him, Riley was already dressed, her borrowed jacket zipped to the chin, eyes hollow from a night without sleep. "He'll make a move today," she said quietly. "Dalton won't wait for the storm to pass. He doesn't have a choice," Cole replied. "He's running out of time." Reed entered the room, holding a radio scanner in one hand. "Got chatter from County Dispatch," he said. "Dalton's men are clearing the docks, burning evidence. 2 trucks loaded, heading south." Riley's jaw tightened. "He's erasing everything." "Then we go now," Cole said. Reed nodded. "I'll take the back roads. You 2 head straight for the port. If we're lucky, the storm will cover us." They moved fast. The Harley growled alive beneath the rain, tires slicing through shallow rivers on the asphalt. Riley clung to Cole's back, her fingers clutching the wet leather of his jacket. The air smelled of dust and ozone. The storm roared like a living thing, chasing them through the lowlands toward Redemption's heart. When they reached the docks, smoke was already rising. Crates burned in neat rows under the floodlights, their labels curling and blackening in the heat. Deputies with rifles moved between the flames, tossing papers into barrels. Cole parked behind a stack of cargo containers, engine off. "He's here," Riley whispered. They moved in silence, the rain masking their footsteps. Between 2 containers, Cole saw him, Sheriff Ray Dalton, broad-shouldered, hat low, barking orders over the sound of thunder. Even soaked in rain, he carried himself like the law was something he owned. "Burn it all!" Dalton shouted. "No loose ends!" Riley's breath hitched. "He's destroying the drives. We need that last shipment manifest." Cole's eyes followed a forklift carrying a crate marked confidential, county storage. "That's our evidence." He looked at her. "Stay behind me." They slipped closer. shadows in the storm. Cole waited until the nearest deputy turned his back, then lunged, striking hard and fast. The man dropped into the mud without a sound. Riley moved in and grabbed his key card. "Office door," she said. They crossed the open yard under the rain, lightning strobing overhead. Inside the office, the air was thick with smoke and heat. Servers hummed behind glass walls, their screens flashing delete complete over and over. Riley typed commands, trying to stop the purge. Come on, she muttered. "Just one backup file." Dalton's voice bellowed behind them. "You never learn, do you?" Cole spun, gun drawn. Dalton stood in the doorway, his revolver steady despite the storm dripping off his hat brim. "You should have walked away, biker." "Thought about it," Cole said. "Then I saw what you did to her partner." Dalton smirked. "That fool thought one recording could touch me. You think a dead girl and a drifter change anything?" "She's not dead," Cole said, "and neither are we." Dalton fired first. The bullet tore through the filing cabinet. Cole dove behind a desk, returning fire. Glass shattered. Sparks danced from the computer screens. Riley crawled toward the terminal, clutching a flash drive. "I've got it!" she shouted. Dalton's second shot hit the wall inches from her head. Cole popped up, aimed, and shot the revolver clean out of his hand. Dalton staggered back, fury replacing surprise. He charged. They collided, crashing through the door into the rain. The mud sucked at their boots as they fought. Two men, one desperate, one determined. Dalton swung wild. Cole ducked, landed a blow that sent the sheriff reeling. "You can't stop it," Dalton shouted, spitting blood. "They'll replace me tomorrow." "Then we'll keep coming tomorrow too," Cole said, and hit him again. Dalton stumbled backward, slipping in the mud until his back hit the burning crate. Flames flared, smoke curling around his face. He reached for the pistol, half buried nearby, but Cole kicked it away, sending it into the water with a hiss. "End of the line," Cole said. Dalton's eyes darted past him, searching for some way out, but the storm had swallowed the yard. Sirens wailed in the distance. Multiple vehicles, the rising chorus of approaching justice. Riley emerged from the office, soaked and trembling but holding the flash drive tight. "It's over," she said. Dalton stared at her, rain streaking the grime from his face. "You don't understand. This goes higher than—" Lightning cracked. For an instant the whole world turned white. When the light faded, Dalton was on his knees, breath gone, pride gone. Cole turned him over just as headlights swept the yard, black SUVs marked with federal insignia. Reed stepped out of the lead vehicle, badge raised. "Federal marshals," he called. "Drop your weapons." Dalton looked up, realization dawning. "You sold me out," he whispered. "No," Riley said. "You did that yourself." The marshals swarmed in, cuffing deputies, dousing fires. Cole stepped aside, letting the chaos wash around him. Riley handed the flash drive to Reed, her fingers shaking. "It's all there," she said. "His files, the money trail, the list." Reed nodded. "We'll get it to Cross. She'll make it stick this time." As Dalton was led away, the rain began to ease. The clouds broke, revealing a thin sliver of sunrise bleeding through the grey. The dock looked like a battlefield washed clean, smoke rising from puddles, papers scattered like ghosts. Riley stood beside Cole, watching the convoy drive off. Her voice was low, almost lost to the wind. "Tony used to say light always finds the cracks." Cole looked at her, then at the brightening sky. Guess he was right. They didn't speak again for a while. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of burnt truth. The Harley waited by the fence, soaked but loyal. Cole touched the seat, water dripping from his glove. "You ready to leave this place behind?" he asked. Riley nodded, exhaustion softening her face. "For good." He handed her his helmet. "Then let's ride." The engine started with a roar that cut through the lingering thunder, and as they rode out of the docks, the first full light of morning broke over Redemption, its golden warmth washing the ruins clean. For the first time in years, the town's name felt earned. 2 weeks later, the sun returned to Redemption with the kind of light that erases shadows. The headlines had already spread across every state. Corrupt sheriff arrested, FBI agent resurfaces with evidence. Trucks came and went, rebuilding what the fires at the dock had devoured. The town that once whispered in fear now spoke in low tones of disbelief, then relief. At a small diner near the highway, the coffee was hot again, and the jukebox worked for the first time in years. Riley Kwan sat in a corner booth, her bandaged wrist resting beside a newspaper folded to the story she'd helped create. Across the headline, her name appeared small but unshakable. Carson Reed sat opposite her, older somehow, the lines around his eyes deeper but calmer. "They're indicting half the county," he said. Cross filed 34 charges yesterday. Dalton's not talking. His lawyers won't even try for bail. Riley stared into her coffee. "He'll stay quiet. Men like him always think silence will save what's left of their pride." Reed nodded. "You did what we couldn't for years. You gave people proof. I didn't do it alone," she said, glancing out the window. The seat across from her felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with space. Outside, the roar of a Harley rolled past the diner, low and familiar. She turned in time to see Cole Maddox slow at the intersection. He didn't come inside, just lifted a hand once, 2 fingers raised in a silent salute, and then he was gone, the engine fading into distance. Reed smiled faintly. "You think he'll ever stop running?" Riley folded the paper and stood. "He's not running," she said. "He's just riding towards something else." By midday, Cole was miles outside town, the desert stretching infinite before him. The road shimmered, the air clean after rain. He rode without destination, the wind tearing through the echoes of gunfire and sirens that still lived somewhere behind his ribs. The Harley hummed beneath him like a promise kept. He stopped once at a ridge overlooking the valley. Below, redemption sat small and bright under the sun, no longer hiding under its name. Cole lit a cigarette, the smoke curling against the wind. Somewhere back there, people were rebuilding. Riley was alive. Justice, whatever that meant anymore, had taken its first breath. He flicked the cigarette into the dust, slid his helmet back on, and kicked the Harley into gear. The road ahead bent west, cutting through miles of gold and silence. As he rode, the voice of the world returned, radio static from the handlebar unit Reed had tuned for him before they parted ways. A woman's voice filled the airwaves, to the man who stopped when everyone else looked away. "This one's for you." Then the soft chords of an old blues song began to play. Cole smiled without meaning to. The desert wind took the sound, scattering it across the open miles. Some stories end in courtrooms or cemeteries. His ended on the road, where engines speak louder than memories and the horizon never runs out, because sometimes justice doesn't wear a badge. It wears leather, dust, and a promise to stop for someone who cannot stand alone. And somewhere between the roar of his bike and the heartbeat of the highway, redemption finally found its name again. And that was the story of a biker who stopped when no one else would. In a town ruled by fear, one act of courage turned silence into justice, and a single ride changed everything. If this journey moved you, take a moment to subscribe to Heart Tales, where every story reminds us that quiet heroes still walk among us. We'd love to know what you think. Would you have stopped if you heard that faint cry for help? Share your thoughts below. Your comment might inspire the next story we tell. Thank you for riding with us today, and don't leave just yet. There are more Heart Tales waiting for you on the end screen. Stay strong, stay kind, and remember, sometimes the smallest decision can rewrite an entire town's fate.